right into it. As I was saying, what a way to start our the college football season. As you guys know, Georgia Tech upset number 10 Florida State on Saturday in Dublin, Ireland. Georgia Tech defeated ACC rival Florida State by a score of 24-21. Georgia Tech had an astounding performance defensively. They just completely prevented Florida State from getting into any sort of rhythm on the offensive end. Georgia Tech limited Florida State to just 193 yards passing and just 98 yards on the ground. And watching the game, you could tell from the first snap that Georgia Tech was an extremely physical team, perhaps even more physical than Florida State. What Georgia Tech did a great job of was their interior pressure, bringing pressure from the interior lineman. So that means bringing in that Mike or that will linebacker on the inside as opposed to blitzing from the outside. They did a great job creating interior pressure on Florida State, which prevented DJ Ugale from having time in the pocket. And you could tell that Florida State was not prepared for that level of physicality and for Georgia Tech's pressure on the defensive end. And Georgia Tech did a great job in their man coverage, in their man press. Florida State was able to beat Georgia Tech a couple times with the deep ball because of this man coverage. We're going to give up those plays sometimes. However, I do believe Florida State could have done a better job of attacking the deep ball with the play action, keeping the defense honest with the blitzes, but they didn't. And Georgia Tech did a great job, like I said, defensively. And on the offensive side of the ball, like I said, they did a great job of just keeping the ball on the ground and running the ball. Georgia Tech had 190 yards rushing compared to 146 yards in the air. Georgia Tech was led by Jamal Haynes, who had 11 carries for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jamal Haynes is an extremely physical runner. He reminds me of a modern-day Brian Westbrook in the way he plays and his physicality, but also his ability to be a threat in the passing game out in the flats. And too often times, Florida State would have missed tackles, and that would lead to extra yards on the play for Georgia Tech. And you get 4 or 5 plays like that where you have missed tackles, it adds up. And that's what happened with Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech did a great job of running the ball on the outside, getting outside the tackles, a lot of zone reads, a lot of counters, and even a couple of draw plays. Georgia Tech was really able to get wherever they wanted to on the offensive side of the ball. The only thing that killed them was the turnovers. Georgia Tech, or this game would have been as close as it was. Their starting quarterback Haynes King had two fumbles, though neither of them were lost. But stuff like that can throw off the momentum of a team. And Georgia Tech showed us that Florida State is not who we thought they were. And with the transfer that came in for Florida State, especially on the offense side of the ball, like I said, with DJ Ugale and Wardell Williams, running back from Alabama, who had 12 carries, 38 yards. He had 1 touchdown. But like I said, he could never get into a rhythm. Same with Lawrence Tafili, who had 8 carries, 32 yards, and a touchdown. So they can never get into a rhythm running the ball. And the one bright spot I will say for Florida State's offense was like I said, Tafili and and Ja'Kai Douglas. Douglas had 4 receptions, 55 yards, and Tafili was a threat on the ground as well as in the air, but they could just never get into a rhythm. And what hurt Florida State, like I said, was their lack of physicality and their inability to stop the run. So what does this mean for Florida State moving forward? What does it mean for the ACC moving forward? This tells me that the ACC has the potential to be the weakest of the Power 5 conferences. But that's not saying much. I don't think anyone really expected any teams from the ACC to truly be that big of a threat in national title contention. But it just shows me that also this disparity between conferences like the ACC and the SEC and the Big Ten. Even with the addition of Cal and SMU and Stanford, just there's still a huge disparity, huge talent gap between those teams. But with this loss, something that's interesting is that with this loss, FSU's chances of making the college football playoff now drops to 12%. And we've talked ad nauseum about the new college football playoff format and how it's no question a money grab for the NCAA, and it just puts more wear and tear on the athletes' bodies, and it just prolongs the inevitable. Some people like it because it allows more opportunities for teams. However, to go from 4 to 12 just tells me that this is more about just creating more ad revenue, creating more revenue options in general for the NCAA as a whole. Because if you were really just worried about allowing more legitimate opportunities for legitimate teams, you would expand it from 4 to 6 or 8 at the most, but not to 12. Because now what happens is, like I said, you get your 4-5 conference champions, and then you get at larges, then you get a group of 5. And what happens is these, even with the buys, you get teams that and players that have all this wear and tear from the course of the season, especially with teams like from the SEC and the Big Ten, it's just loaded with talent. I mean, like for example, the SEC has Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas, Oklahoma, and you have conferences like that with the Big Ten. You got Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, USC, Oregon. Teams with talent like that in their conference, they beat up on each other over the course of seasons, and then you get to the playoff and you have to play again. So it creates that dynamic that I believe is in a sense unfair to those that high tier, those top level teams. And sure, it creates another sense of parity that's already in college football, which is what draws a lot of its fan base. That's the allure of college football, that sense of parity. But it's just a money grab. And there's no other way to see it. I'm open to hearing other perspectives and hearing what you guys think. Is the 12-team format, is it better than the previous format? I would love to hear your guys' thoughts, but let me know. Am I wrong about this? Is it more than just a money grab? Is it really legitimately giving great opportunities to other teams to possibly win a national championship? Let me know. But that being said, guys, yes, Georgia Tech pulled off an amazing, I won't even call it an upset. They defeated Florida State. Georgia Tech defeated Florida State because based on the performance, I know it's only week 1, but based on what I've saw from Florida State this past weekend, there's no way that they'll be vying for a contention to win the ACC, let alone making the college football playoff. But Georgia Tech, on the other hand, quite possibly could be a dark horse candidate to win the ACC. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section, though. I would love to hear all about it. That being said, guys, in our next topic, we are going to be discussing whether Alabama has a legitimate chance of making the college football championship and winning the national championship. Be sure to stick around for that, guys. You are not going to miss it. We'll be right back.